Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minion with me this evening is Adam.
Hello.
And of course, as it is once again a Friday, I'm the keeper for this evening, Sanguine. How are you doing tonight, Adam?
Uh, I'm glad it's Friday, and you know, seeing all the shit that's been going on this week. Holy shit! I'm glad I made it to Friday.
Yeah,
How are you doing?
I'm doing fairly well. I've had a very pleasant time personally, but so much shit is hitting the fan
I
on a
mean,
more national scale and international scale.
it's just weird because and again, I apologize, audience who's just tuning in. And hey, God bless you for hanging out with us and tuning in. And make sure you hit that like and subscribe. But we were chatting before we hit the live button, and it's just there's a lot going on, and some of
Mhm.
it is not being uh addressed. Again, like I said, dude. Um, I was thinking earlier, I dodged the bullet because my job was looking at sending somebody to Arizona to because they need some help picking up their workload.
Mhm.
Um, and it was up against me and another dude. This other guy, he has family out there, so it made more sense. Then again, they were looking at me like, well, you really don't have too much going on out here. You don't have a family or anything, so you're single. You can go out there, and it's like, what the
Mhm.
fuck? um, so I bit the bullet or I dodged the bullet on that, and the other guy's going, but it's he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be on I-10, and I'm like, wait, I-10 isn't that out by Tucson where that truck derailed and fucking
The
orange
massive death cloud.
chemical fucking cloud came out? And I'm
Yeah, I
like,
actually
yeah, I don't
have
want.
the death cloud pulled up just because this is something that I was meaning to talk about. Just the what the fuck. Actually, no, I don't have the Tucson death cloud. I have the Ohio death cloud.
I'm sorry. Uh,
Getting confused with the death clouds that we currently have going.
oh, we
So,
could talk about the Detroit train derailment. Oh man, or there was a Chicago Heights plant. But listen. This is normal. Okay, this happens all the time.
so let's get
Okay.
this death cloud shared so that everyone can see the image that looks like it's right out of A Night on Bald Mountain. You
Look at
remember A
that
Night
shit.
on Bald Mountain, right?
Ooh,
The
can't say that I do.
Fantasia
Oh yeah, with the demon.
demon, the
Yep.
volcano demon.
Look at this
Tell me
shit.
that that doesn't look like Night on Bald Mountain bullshit.
But you gotta understand, Sanguine. This happens all the time.
See, the problem that I have with this, and the reason why I named the show, this is why merit matters. Why it's an important thing. Because what there were a bunch of things that should have happened after this train derailment that, by all accounts, none of them did. So there are absolutely cases where the best way of dealing with an incident like this is burn that shit. There is absolutely instances where that's the case. The problem is you need to look into a few things before you decide whether or not this is one of the cases where burn that shit is the best response. So,
Yeah.
one of the major things that you need to look into is what's the pyrolysis temperature for the chemicals that you're talking about. Because here's the nasty thing about chemicals, some of them, yeah, they'll burn at fairly low temperatures. which you're able to achieve with normal fires. Some of them, they just evaporate at those temperatures, which means that rather than you having a liquid form of this chemical, you've now evaporated it, and you have a gaseous form of this chemical.
Well, yeah, that's
And you
that's
need to
okay
know that,
because well, hold on. I mean, once it turns into gas, it's just gonna form into like clouds, and it's just gonna breeze away. You know, it's
it's
okay.
just going to rain down on people occasionally,
But not in
poison a
that particular
massive
area. Like,
chunk of the area with just the poisonous vapors that have been the cause or been released by boiling this shit and just vaporizing it.
have you seen that? Have you seen that where they boiled the water and it crystallized?
Oh, that when you get the water that if you boil off enough of it, it starts to crystallize. That's because it's has a shit ton of other substances in it that don't get to boil off. So what happens is as the water is boiled off, those crystals form. It's the same thing that if you get a pot of salt water and then you make a hypertonic solution, you make, or not just hypertonic, you want to take it to a super saturated solution. So a saturated solution means that you can't really dissolve any more of a substance in under normal circumstances, but you can take it to super saturation, which means that you've gone beyond the saturation limit. And then if you boil that shit off, you'll end up forming crystals around it. This happens a hell of a lot. Have you ever had a pasta pot that all you do, or a tea kettle that all you do is you boil water from your tap in it, and you start noticing that there's a white powdery film around the inside, or you might actually get some crystals after using it hundreds of times over?
I mean, yeah, but these are different looking crystals, dude.
I know, I'm using this as an example, though, because what happens is, effectively, in many of these instances, it's the same thing, where it's, as liquid evaporates, you get these crystals forming of all the crap that doesn't get to evaporate. The salts, the dissolved compounds will crystallize on the inside. You also can get the crystals that form from just a chemical reaction going on, which some of those are that. But as I was saying, you check the pyrolysis temp of the chemicals to make sure that you aren't just going to boil the chemicals and turn them into the gaseous state, but you're actually going to burn the chemicals. The second step is after you figure out that, yes, we're able to achieve temperatures where we will burn these chemicals and actually burn these chemicals, not just evaporate them. The next step is you look at, well, what's the byproduct of burning these chemicals? Because sometimes the byproduct of burning a chemical is perfectly fucking fine. If you burn hydrocarbons at the right temperature and with enough oxygen, do you know what you get from burning hydrocarbons, Adam?
No. What happens?
Properly burning hydrocarbons, you get carbon dioxide and water. If you properly burn a hydrocarbon. So this is what happens in cellular respiration. Cellular respiration, it takes a hydrocarbon. In most instances, it starts with glucose. It breaks down that glucose, and it ends up functionally burning it. It's not the exact method. There's a series of chemical reactions that equate to burning, but it's easier just to explain it as it functionally burns it, which is why you think of burning calories. But at the end, you exhale carbon dioxide and water vapor, because that's the result of that shit. Other things, you burn them and they produce horrendously deadly things. So what you do is you figure out the pyrolysis temperature. Make sure that you're actually able to burn the chemical, not just evaporate the chemical. Then you look at the byproducts and you make sure that, are these byproducts inert? Are these byproducts completely fine? Or are these byproducts shit that's deadly? If you end up with, no, we aren't able to burn what we're trying to burn, then you don't burn it. If you end up with, yes, we can burn it, but these chemicals are deadly as shit when burned, don't fucking burn it. One of the major things that you need to know in order to figure out these two things that I just listed is what's on the fucking thing that you're trying to burn, or that you're trying to figure out whether or not you should burn. And they didn't get the goddamn shipping manifest. For some fucking reason, they didn't think to get the shipping manifest. One of the most important things and the easiest things to get, because all you do in order to get the shipping manifest is you go, hey, train company that was hauling this, freight company, this train derailed. What the fuck was on it? I want the itemized shipping manifest. And the train company goes, here's the itemized shipping manifest.
They were if I believe it was one in the same company, FTA, something like that. So, and that's the reason why they quickly burned everything, is because, hey, let's just get it on through. So even if you want to go, you can go this is sabotage, or this is, uh, you know, capitalistic corporate corruption type of thing, where they didn't care to, we don't need to clean up anything. Let's just get it done quickly. So,
See,
I
I
mean,
don't think that it was.
but that's what I mean. It could have been any of these things. The fact is that people are more concerned with dude, this is in Ohio. There's a lot of farmland out there.
Yep.
This is a lot of that is going to be affected.
Yep.
And the fact that we just had the last
There were
Biden,
miles
no,
of.
the last Biden fucking video that he put out there, it was like, hey, we need to send some more money to Ukraine. What in the fuck? Dude, at what point do people fucking sit there and say, yeah, something the fuck is going on? This is ridiculous, dude. Like, uh, what the fuck? And again, even after that, that was 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago.
Yep.
Again, shit happened in Detroit, shit happened in fucking Texas, and then even Hammer was like, "Oh, hey, why would a truck and somebody kill themselves, dude?" Let's be real. At this point, we understand that there's fucking crazy people who will fucking be quote unquote activated and go and start shooting up shit. They're still talking about MSU when it was a dude with a handgun who shot up fucking 5, 6 people. That happens all the time in Chicago. Nobody's fucking having uh fucking press conferences about this shit.
Well, part of that is there's something that people really like to ignore is a thing, but we can't fucking ignore it, or at least we shouldn't fucking ignore it, which is when something takes place in an area and it just keeps on taking place in that area, everyone is going to go, yeah, that's what happens there. It's like when there's a terrorist attack in the Middle East. It doesn't really make international news very often unless there's something particularly egregious about it. Otherwise, it's just, yeah, that's what happens there. What do you mean that should be something that's big news? That's every other fucking day. It's kind of like, there was a shooting in Chicago. No shit. There was a shooting in Chicago. That Chicago gets a hell of a lot of shootings. So it depends on how common something is, how much news it will be. If it is something that happens a lot, it's not news. If it's something that is extremely rare, then it is news.
If dude, no, yeah, that's 100% the bullshit, dude. Fucking, and again, because you'll get the people who, oh, you don't care about the life. No, it's not about that. It's how quickly people pivot the viewpoint of, holy shit, there's gun shootings going on where there's some deaths, and all of a sudden it's, hey, we need to ban assault rifles. And then we
And
sit here and look at all these other things that are going on, and it's like, dude, nobody's fucking saying anything. Pete Buttigieg went out there, and the only thing he says about the train derailments is that there's too much white people fucking work. Dude, come on. At some point, we have to admit that there's bullfuckery going on. Like
oh,
this,
I
like
freely
it's,
admit that there's silly horse shit going on. And what I'm saying, though, is that the people that are going, well, you don't care when it happens in this area, quite frankly, that is somewhat correct, but not for the reason that they're saying. The reason why people don't really
wait. What do you
think
mean?
about or
What do you mean
care.
they say they don't care about what happens in other areas? What do you mean?
Well, this is what I'm saying. If you cared about every single shooting that happened in Chicago and you were broken up about it, you would
No, that's
constantly
the
be crying.
opposite. It's we are saying, why aren't you paying attention to the shit in Chicago? And then when shit happens in other places, dude, that's even more of a fucking it's even more of a pinpoint. Like if it's happening in Chicago and nobody's saying anything about it, and then something big happens in an area where nobody's reporting on it, it's like, dude, yeah, this is an issue. These are issues that people should be talking about. Both the shootings and the off-duty cop lady
Hold
who
on, Adam.
was
I think either I didn't quite communicate what I was trying to communicate, or it was interpreted in a way that I did not mean it to be interpreted. What I'm saying is that when an event happens in an area where that event is extremely common, it is something that it becomes extremely difficult for people to maintain the same degree of care, the same degree of moral outrage, shall we say.
oh, I can understand the fatigue that people could get.
Which
I
is
mean,
what
that's
I'm saying,
expected.
that
Yeah.
there's fatigue. So when people say, well, people don't care when it's a shooting in Chicago, yeah, because we did care. We
No, no,
cared
no, no.
for an extended period of time,
Dude,
and then it reached a point where fatigue set in.
dude, don't get me wrong. It, having lived out here and hearing all the local stories that would hear, even before all the, uprising internet, like you'd hear all the local shit.
Yep.
This area is not, I mean, even as we live out farther out, like it's, we still experience this shit and we still are around it. And the thing is, it's ah it's not to downplay it. It's not to
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying that it should be downplayed. I'm just saying that it's a natural result. When something is happening every day, people stop giving it the same amount of attention as they do when it's the first time that this has happened in 100 years. That's a big news story. When it's a normal Tuesday evening, that's nothing. That it doesn't track in the news. It doesn't make any impact because, yeah, that's just how that is in this area. Which is one thing that always drives me crazy because people will take the normal result of this is so fucking common that we can't give it the same amount of care. We get fatigued. And they'll go, yeah, so people don't care about it because of some bullshit reason. Like they'll say, people don't care about the shootings in Chicago because it's happening to black people. No, that's not the reason why people don't care. It's the fact that it's every goddamn day. And you just get fatigued. You can't give it the same amount of care. You can't be as freaked out about it as you can the first time. You take a shooting in a prosperous black neighborhood that it's the first shooting in the past 50 years, and it will be massive goddamn news. But,
hold on, wait. I don't know. I think it's a bit of stray of where I was going. I mean, I was saying, you don't get too much news coverage of areas in terms of shootings as opposed to somebody like, again, MSU, where it was a crazy guy who was arrested and then released and then went out and shot up a university, and it's all over the news. Whereas Chicago, you'll get the same type of thing where somebody will go and shoot up a bunch of people and it doesn't get the same news coverage. It's people using these news coverages for a reason. And no, yeah, no, for whatever, the dude, Chicago is gonna is always gonna have people shooting. it's it's gonna do that. Uh, the place is surrounded it as well, But what I'm saying is we're still looking at politicians using the same old tactic where it was a dude with a handgun shooting up MSU, and hey, we need to ban assault rifles.
yep.
And there's still goofy ass fucking people who will sit there and be like, oh, yup, we need to ban assault rifles because otherwise MSU wouldn't have happened. And what the fuck? These people aren't paying attention to what in the fuck is going on.
Yeah,
And
and
that's where the issue is.
part of the reason why they aren't paying attention is because for a lot of people, it's too much information for them to process at one time. Because if you really want to have correct information when it comes to shootings, well, you don't just look at the big cases that make the news, but you have to look at all the cases. And when you look at all the cases, there's cultural problems that play into it. There's other shit that plays into it. So you have mental health issues. That plays into a lot of shootings. You have cultural problems like gangs and shit like that. That plays into the lion's share of shootings. Then you also have some educational issues where someone will be in an area where there's a gun and no one dragged them off to the side and told them the rules of guns. Don't point it at anything that you don't want to destroy. The bullet doesn't stop with the first thing that it hits, so make sure that not only what you're pointing at you're willing to destroy, but everything in front of and behind what you're pointing at you're willing to destroy. Treat every weapon like it is loaded. These are rules. There's 4 rules of guns that anyone who has any real respect for weapons, make sure that anyone that's around their weapon fucking knows. Because if they don't pay attention to this, if they don't respect that, well, you're fucked. Because that means that now you have someone who doesn't know what the hell they're doing around a weapon, which is why you see a lot of kids end up accidentally shooting themselves or accidentally shooting a friend because they don't know the rules of guns. You end up with idiots like the TikTok people from, was it a year ago or 2 years ago, when they did the I'm going to shoot my boyfriend who has I think it was dictionary on his chest with my revolver.
Wait, he
And
had the word dictionary, or he had
he had a
like a
dictionary.
visual? Oh,
He had a dictionary. One of the, like, New Oxford English Dictionary.
just like an image of like a book.
He had the book, the actual
Huh.
book. He grabbed a book, put it on his chest, then had his girlfriend shoot him. And
Oh, like so to see if the bullet could go through the. Oh, okay. I
yep,
thought he had a tattoo of the book.
no, I'm
I'm sitting
saying
there
he
like,
had an
why would
actual
he have a
fucking
diction?
dictionary.
Yeah, well, I mean, that sounded confusing to me. Why would he have a tattoo of the dictionary? I mean, he must have been a very big linguist or something. But yeah, no, yeah, that see if you can shoot through the book.
Yeah, and what happened was, it did. And because it did, and because they were fucking retarded about it, and he had it right over his heart, she put the barrel of the gun right up against it and she shot
Oh,
him in the heart.
see, she should have stood a distance. At least he could have uh, been able to make the claim that he was attempting to be a bull moose.
Nah, what you
But
do if you want to see if you can shoot through a surface is you go to an area where there's nothing behind what you're shooting at, and you do it very carefully. You set it up so that you have a viable target behind, like a ballistics dummy, and then a burn behind that. Shit that every gun tuber on Earth does when it comes to this shit. Where they'll have a berm set up, they'll have their gun that they want to see if it can shoot through something, they'll have the thing that they want to see if they can shoot through, they'll have a ballistic dummy behind it, and then they'll shoot their ballistic dummy trying to pass through the object. If it does, they find out that, holy shit, this gun can shoot through this dictionary without any problem. No one fucking dies because of it, because they were intelligent enough to have it set up properly so it wasn't just shooting themselves. Because a bullet can pass through shit and keep going. But people don't learn about guns. People don't know
except
how
water.
guns work. Say again?
Oh, I was gonna say, water disrupts the bullet after a bit.
Yeah, you can set it up so that you have a water tank or water pool behind. That's one way that ballistic tests are done. They'll have a water pool that they fire the bullet into, and then they collect the bullet from the water pool.
Oh,
There's a
so they
bunch
get
of
the
different
measurements.
there's a bunch of different things that you can do in order to set it up safely. None of the things that you can do in order to set things up safely are, well, you just shoot your boyfriend while
Yeah,
he's holding a dictionary.
was it the Oxford Dictionary? Yeah, probably not a good choice.
Didn't matter what dictionary it was, just going,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
I
we'll
don't know. Is there another
fire
dictionary?
into his chest with a dictionary on top of it is
I thought
not going to be a good idea.
aren't don't don't dictionaries like aren't they like don't they come in like a series that you have to get like a bunch of them?
It depends on the dictionary. A lot of dictionaries are just thicker and thicker books.
Oh,
But
yeah. Well, see, uh,
yeah,
I mean, honestly, once I figured out what what the internet was, I was like, oh, Encyclopedia Britannica. No need for that. Ooh. Well, see,
But it's
honestly, maybe if he layered a bunch of those, probably could have stopped the bullet.
again, even then, what you would do is you would set it up so that, okay, here's my completely safe setup that doesn't require a person being behind what I'm shooting.
I mean, let's be realistic. The basic premise of what the story is, yeah, the guy's fucking dumb. Like you, no, paper is not gonna stop a bullet. But
Yeah, and like I said, what happens is you have a few different categories of people that end up shooting other people. You have those who intentionally shoot other people. A lot of these tend to be gang related, some of these tend to be mental health related, some of them tend to be various other issues. Turns out there's a lot of different reasons that people decide to shoot people. But you need to actually look at why things are happening in order to have an actual effect on them. If you're trying to decrease the number of shootings, well, if we could get rid of gangs, that would do a hell of a lot. If you're trying to reduce the number of shootings, okay, look at what sort of psychological issues are at play. See if we can reduce those. Something that doesn't really work, and we know it doesn't really work because we've looked at violent crime, is if you're trying to get rid of violent crimes, going, well, we'll just get rid of guns. Doesn't fucking work. There are a bunch of areas that they ban guns and then their crime rate increases. We have a bunch of areas in the United States where they make getting a gun legally almost impossible, and the result has been increase in gun crime. Not just an increase in general violent crime, but increases in gun crime. So that doesn't fucking work. What you need to do is actually address the root issue. But what I was saying is that when people are hearing about various shootings that actually reach the news, a good chunk of the time they're hearing about big incidences that are extremely rare. And then they start making their entire gun policy based around those, while ignoring the lion's share of shootings that don't make the news because they happen in areas where shootings are just the norm. The vast majority of New York shootings, the vast majority of Chicago shootings, the vast majority of insert big city here shootings don't make the news. And the overwhelming number of those aren't done with long arms. In fact, I looked up the stats a while ago. I haven't done it in the past couple years. But for the longest fucking time, when you looked at the stats for deaths due to long arms, there were fewer deaths due to long arms than there were deaths due to people falling out of bed. Every year.
falling out of bed.
Yep.
Poor little Nemo.
So there were more deaths from someone just taking a tumble out of their fucking bed every year than there were people being murdered with long arms. Which
But see, then you
goes to
get
say,
to the quagmire of what a long arm, what an assault rifle, what assault pistol now we have.
oh no,
It's
long arm
it's
is very easy.
no, I know, I know. I'm a rational person. I understand it, but we're dealing with irrational people
Oh yeah.
who want to distort word and verbiage and be able to fucking dictate based on what they want to conjure. This
Mm-hmm.
is the problem, dude. I mean that you are 100% correct. No, I mean, the to a degree. Oh shit. But yeah, no, yeah, it's one of those things where it's a lot of it is handguns, and
Yeah,
a
a
lot of
lot of
it
it
is
is handguns, and a lot of the handguns is organized crime.
yeah, it's crime, it's criminals, dude. It's the idea of hey, let's legislate people with their own firearms. Is like okay, well, what's that's not going to solve anything
Yep,
because it's not addressing any of the problems. But go
which is
ahead.
what I was saying.
Cont-
That if you want to actually do something about gun crime, well, then you have to include all gun crime when you're looking at it. And you have to look at what are the causes of the gun crime. And then you go cause by cause and you reduce each one that you can. You won't be able to reduce any of them to zero, but you'll be able to reduce them, unless they've already been reduced to base levels, down to a base level. Because this is the thing that always drives me crazy. There's this utopian idea that some people have that we can just legislate crime away. There's something that we can do where we'll be able to make it so that no one commits crime.
well, dude, even on top of that, I think a lot of people full on believe that there's 100% good people out there.
Yeah,
It's just based on circumstances that they succumb to some vile acts. It's like, no, dude, there's bad people out there. There's
yeah,
bad people out there. And
but
they're going to take advantage of what they can do. So you can legislate, you can fucking sit there and make rules, but all the, at the same end, there's going to be people who are going to take advantage and do it, whether
yep,
they have a blue collar or no collar. You know, that's
and the way that I tend to look at it is the ideal or the situation that we're in.
or a white
Let's
collar.
start with
Yeah.
that. And the situation that we are inexorably in. There is no way to change this aspect that I'm going to say. Is there's a certain percent of the population that they're just fucked. Doesn't matter how well they're treated, doesn't matter what virtues they're allowed to benefit from. They will do the worst shit that they are able to.
Yeah.
There's a certain percent of the population that are the exact opposite. It does not matter how poorly they are treated, how abused they are, whatever happens to them, they won't ever do anything to harm another person if they can avoid it at all. Both of these groups exist, and you need to acknowledge that both of these groups exist. But then the vast majority of people fall in the middle, where if you treat them one way, it increases criminality, where if you treat them another, it decreases criminality. And the ideal setup for everything in my mind is to make being a criminal as difficult as possible while being good as easy as possible. This is one of the reasons why I like capitalism. Because in capitalism, if it's properly done, the only way to become wealthy is by giving people things that they want and that they're willing to pay for. So, if you have it set up right, you have a situation where people only benefit, only achieve by making other people's lives better. That's a good fucking scenario, because that means that people that would do good are able to do good still. And now they're doing good and getting rewarded, which is even better.
I don't know,
People
man.
that would do shitty things still would try to do shitty things, but they might realize that, oh, God, it's actually easier for me to do something that's good and get the end result that I want.
That just That just sounds like hippy dippy bippy dippy.
Nah, that's how shit should be set up. You want it set up so that you have this nice scenario where you're encouraged to do good, you're discouraged to do bad, and doing good is as easy as it possibly can be.
Hey, okay, so here we go. If some of the people who were hanging out when we were when you were cooking at the island, right?
Yep.
And some dumb people who were oh, you guys are cooking eggs again? What would you have said if somebody said, "Hey, can I get a plate of some of them bacon or eggs?" What would you have said?
Probably I would have gone, sure, here, have a bite.
Dude, that's all it means. Like, yeah, hey, yeah, you want some bacon? You want some eggs? I got
Do you
some
know
extra.
what
Here
would
you go.
make it 100% I would have gone yes? Because this is what I was getting at earlier. That if people set up the situation where you actually benefit from being kind to other people, you're more likely to be kind. If someone saw me cooking and went, hey, is there any chance that I could get some bacon and eggs? I'll even give you a $5. 100%, I would have gone, yeah, here. Because it's something that I probably would have done anyways. Like I said, if I was asked, can I grab a plate? Most likely I would say yes. If it's asked and there's some compensation, 100% of the time I will say yes.
Yeah. Well, hey, yeah, they fucking offered a $5. Shit.
Yeah, and that's what capitalism, when it's done correctly, is that. Capitalism is this process of, hey, I have X, you have Y. You want X, I want Y. Let's exchange this. And you agree. If a deal is done appropriately, both sides leave that deal thinking they got the better end of that deal.
I don't know if it would be they think they got the better end of the deal. I think
Oh no.
they got
Every,
what, you know, X equals Y type of deal. You know, like,
see,
hey, I
I
give you
very
this, you give
much
me that.
I very much disagree because you feel like you get the better end of the deal. Because let's take something basic. So, going back to the food example. If I had an excess of food and you had an excess of cash, the chance
Well,
of
what
you
is
going,
cash?
say again,
What is cash?
actual money. Let's go for the simplest
Well, no,
breakdown.
there is no. You have food. I have cash. What is cash? What is cash? Like, you
Cash
you
is
have something that I need to sustain myself to survive. Cash. What is cash?
cash is something that I need to sustain myself
So like
because
gold.
not necessarily gold. It's cash is a medium for me to exchange later. So it's banking work to a certain extent.
I
I
don't
can
like
either
bacon work. I don't like
work
beggars.
I can either work and get what I need by my own work, which could be extremely hard because if I don't know how to do something, it'll take a lot of work for me to learn how to do it. If I do know how to do something, then it might be easier for me to work rather than paying someone else to do it, or it might be easier for me to pay someone else to do it. It depends on
Yeah,
how I
I
feel about
know,
that
but
task.
we're not
Cash
all.
is that banking of work. It's something that can be exchanged for someone else doing work.
Yes.
Anything can technically be cash as long as it's an acceptable medium of transfer.
So like gold.
Gold could be cash, yes. And historically, gold has been one of the most consistent forms of cash.
I mean, outside of like stick knots, we really don't have other or silver. Like there's. I don't want to get into paper currency or bonds because that's just now we're stepping into
But the
debt
thing is
slavery. Let's not
that
speak of this. This is
even
that's,
with talking about fiat currency can still be used in what I was saying. So if I have a need for money and you have a need for food, I have excess food, you have excess money, you pay me. The food that you're getting is worth more than the money that you're paying for the food. The money I'm getting is worth more than the food that I'm giving you. So this is something that is crucial to being able to make deals with people. And it's the beautiful thing about the way that we do deals, because you'll only make the deal for food to cash if it's beneficial to you. I'll only make the deal of food to cash if it's beneficial to me. And the only other way is if it's completely equal, but those tend to be more rare because even then it is still somewhat of a calculation of, is this better for me? Am I getting the better end of this deal? So a person that needs $5 bills in order to get food from a vending machine, they need $1 bills. Someone who has a $5 bill sees this vending machine. They might go to someone and say, hey, can you exchange my $5? And if the other person views it as, yeah, that $5 is more efficient for me because then I'm not dealing with a smaller or more of a smaller bill, so it's easier for me to keep track of. Yeah, I'll exchange the 5 ones for $5, and they'll give you 5 ones for your $5 because it's a better deal on both sides. Anything that is freely entered into, you aren't going to freely enter into a deal that is negative to you. At the very least, a deal has to be completely neutral. But even then, you could argue that a deal wouldn't be completely neutral because even if you had no need for a $5 bill and someone asked for you to change money, it might make you feel good that you helped someone out. And that feeling good is worth more than having the 5 ones in your pocket. So, when properly done, when all deals are entered into freely without compulsion, in capitalism, everyone feels like they get the better end of every deal. Because if they didn't, why would they make the deal? If you thought that you were getting the worst end of the deal, why would you agree to it?
Honestly, that's the point. And you can even argue that with things like strip clubs.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to open a strip club and there's women who are willing to dance for money.
Yep.
Like, what is the error code for that? Like that, it just.
They have an overabundance of sex appeal, and they have a lack of money. So, to them, it is a good deal to strip for a little bit of money. And for the guys who have more money than they have titillation, it makes sense for them to pay for titillation.
And if they want to pay for it, yeah.
Yeah.
I like this stuff.
Yeah, it's it is the beautiful thing about capitalism. Everyone feels like they're getting the best end of the deal when it's done correctly.
Well, yeah, when it's done correctly.
Yeah, and that's
I
the problem, that it is so often not done correctly right now because there's
I have a strong
compulsion in
feeling
play.
we are currently fixing that problem. Let's just go with that.
I feel like we're actually making a lot of shit worse when it comes to having compulsion in play.
Well, it's always darkest before it gets light, so
Potentially.
yeah.
But yeah, it just drives me crazy because every time I hear someone say, well, it's not fair that someone has to pay for. No. That's entirely bullshit. You should have to pay to get things that you want like that. But the difference is that you should get to choose what you want rather than dealing with, nope, you're being told this is what you want. So this is what you're going to go for. Fuck you.
Or even, hey, you're choosing this guy to represent you, and he may, put stuff towards here, but stuff otherwise. And it's, well, hey, dude, I didn't pay for that. The
Yep.
fuck?
And sometimes it's a trade where you don't get something exactly what you want, but you get enough of what you want that you're happy with that. Sometimes
Hope you're
you
happy.
just,
It's not a.
yeah, sometimes you're being cheated, and when you're being cheated, there should be some form of recompense.
Hey, I don't think we covered what you were cooking for this evening's dinner.
This evening's dinner is going to be some seared salmon that I'm going to be serving up with a bit of coleslaw and some blue cheese pickles.
Wait, how do you blue cheese the pickles?
So, blue cheese pickles are done in blue cheese dressing with cucumbers. So, it gets a nice bit of funkiness to them. And it is
Well,
absolutely
okay,
delicious.
hold on. You're already talking blue cheese. That's mold and mildew, sir. Okay, and then you're gonna go add funky. What
Yep.
is the funky aspect?
Well, it's the
Was it
tang
spicy?
of blue cheese.
Oh, okay.
So, blue cheese gives it that funky tang, and that's pleasant on the pickles, just like how sour pickles, either pickled in vinegar or um, pickled via lactobacillus pickling, is rather tasty. So, same thing. You just do it with the blue cheese dressing. Ends up really tasty. Works really well with salmon. So, salmon,
Nice.
blue cheese pickles, a creamy coleslaw. It'll be a really nice dinner.
It's not bad.
Mm-hmm. And hello, Adamantine. I forgot to say hello earlier. Hello, Keever. Hello, K Skull. And James Cully was asking earlier, you dodged a bullet or did they miss you? Dodged a bullet makes it sound like you did something really cool. They missed you. They just suck at aiming.
I don't know who dodged a bullet.
You said that you dodged a bullet earlier.
Oh yeah, with going fucking
Arizona.
Arizona. Yeah, fuck that.
Yep.
I'll
But yeah,
suffer the cold. fuck
like
that.
I was saying earlier, it's important that we have merit-based systems, because when you have merit-based systems, shit is actually done appropriately, and it's done in a way that everyone ends up benefiting from. Whereas when we're doing the horse shit that we're doing right now, where rather than going based off merit, we're going based off of factors that don't matter one jot or tittle, it ends up just damaging everything. And we see this time and again. Look at the Biden White House. Any person that was named for a reason other than, well, they were the best person for the job, which is to say every person that has been named has resulted in absolute fucked shit happening left, right, and center. Which is infuriating. And then the people that are trying to say, well, they weren't named for no reason. No. When the reason that someone says they're naming someone is what's between their legs and their skin pigmentation, that means that merit is not what they're being picked for. And if you're restricting your pool down to people of certain genitalia preferences, and certain skin pigmentations, well, you've reduced the pool of people. Therefore, you cannot say with any sense of certainty that you're picking the best person. Because that's how shit works. If you reduce the pool, you might have just reduced the best person out of it. At least if you reduce the pool on non-merit-based criteria. If you reduce the pool on merit-based criteria, then you're fine, because that's how merit-based criteria works. So, anything that you have a desperate urge to talk about? Because that just connected back to the railroad issue of if someone was actually in their position due to merit, they would have known that, hey, what you do is you end up checking to make sure that the pyrolysis temp is sufficient to destroy the chemicals, and that the chemicals that you get from the burning of those chemicals aren't inherently dangerous. But no one bothered to do that because they didn't know to do that. They didn't have their aspects that they needed, which is infuriating. But yeah, anything that you wanted to talk about? Those were the major things that I wanted to talk about. Just the importance of merit, the importance of actually choosing based on merit rather than some bullshit characteristic that doesn't actually affect anything or affect the quality of anything.
Nothing that comes to mind, to be honest.
Kind of sounds like we're winding down then if you don't have any topics. And I've talked about the major thing that I wanted to talk about.
I think we covered a lot of stuff. Not to say that we couldn't go on, but I think we've covered a good chunk of stuff.
Yeah, we're at a point where we could tap out and it wouldn't suffer. And I think that unless we have a good topic to go on to, continuing on trying to find a topic might not be the most entertaining. So, shall we go to parting words?
Well, I don't know. Do you want to show the audience some struggling, like, hey, have you seen the trailer for the Flash?
Yeah, I'd rather not try to flounder my way through to find a topic. I can pick ones that I would find interesting, but I'm not 100% sure that they or you would find them
No, well,
as interesting as I would.
I
But
think instead of interesting, it'd be cringy for the
exactly.
folk.
So let's go to parting words. What do you want your parting words to be?
um, well, shit. It's fucking 3-day weekend, so that's all I'm thinking about. I'm gonna go play some Soul Calibur, or at least try
Nice.
to. Uh, um, but yeah, hey, thanks for having me on, Sanguine. It's dude, I really love hanging out with you on Friday. I look forward to it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Always fun.
but yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out.
Yep. Thanks for being around, and I'll actually not use my standard. I'll use something else tonight because I heard a quote that I found rather appealing to me, which is from Plutarch, if I remember correctly. It was, I have no need for friends who change when I change or who nod when I nod. My shadow does that much better, anyways.
Ooh,
And with that, have a good night, all. The zoo is closed.
night.
And let me click this, and it'll take a moment for it to actually click